Hello.
Hello, Helen. Good to see you.
Always good to see you, Verena. I love going online and chat with you. This is just a fab way to spend Thursday evening.
For you, it's evening. It's true for me here in Philadelphia. It's
right, of course,
it's lunchtime. So
lunchtime.
Good to see you. Let's see that we get a few of our industry colleagues live. To make sure that we take them with us and don't start without them. We have already a few on. Let's wait a few more seconds until it's 1 o'clock, and then we will start.
Super, super.
Think it's good to go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Verena Lasvinia, and I'm so excited to welcome you to the first edition of Spa and Wellness Talk by VLF Spa Consulting. Thank you so much for joining me today and being interested in our topic, which is training. I have always had a big passion for training and will never forget what a dear colleague of mine told me in the very early stages of my career, probably like 18 years ago. Never compromise on training. And I'm so honored to introduce you today to my co-host for this session, my dear colleague, Helen Norman, who is the founder and director of My Wellness Guru, a professional training and coaching spa consultancy based out of London. With Helen, we met 10 years ago in Bali when we both were as
2010
directors for seasons.
Yeah, we met in 2010, but we were working together, weren't we, from 2008?
Absolutely. When you joined, I think at the time you joined from Mandarin.
Yes, yes.
Correct.
I came from London over to Hong Kong.
And since then, long time ago. And since then, when you left, you specialized in training, and that's what really made me think of you for being the right partner for me for this talk today about training.
So bless you. Well, I'm absolutely honored to be your first guest. It's either a positive or a negative for you.
Always positive. I'm a big positive person, so that can only be positive. And we had so many questions through social media already, but we also welcome your questions, the audience today in the chat. So we have 30 minutes and we'll do our best to cover them all. We have lots to talk about today. So let's start right away, Helen, and get your insight on how spa and wellness operations are doing with training these days, and working over the last decade with many spas, and now especially also with the current pandemic. I know how many spas are actually struggling with squeezing some money into their budgets for training. What could you give as an advice to spa managers listening here today who do not have training budgets, or who may even have difficulties in convincing their GMs and hotel managers why training is key to success, and why it has such an important, relevant, and even profitable, why it is such an important, relevant, and even profitable investment?
Of course. Well, if you think about, if you're standing still, then you're missing out, because the world continues to evolve. So if you stand still and don't learn new things, then you miss the new technique, the new theory, the new style, the new demand in the industry. So I think it's just really important, isn't it? You've got to keep moving.
I think so, definitely. What are some ideas that spa leaders can take when there is no budget, or when there are?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything is right down to the bone at the moment. It's right down to the bone from COVID and being closed and financial restraints. So I think if you don't have a set budget for training, then you can have ways to incorporate training in the operations. And this can be ad hoc, which is great if anybody has a gap and you can get your therapist together or get your receptionist together. If the operation is busy, which is a great problem. But then, it's not a problem, but it's for training, maybe then include it into briefings, include it into visual posters. It's involving the team to sort of update people and having visual information and ad hoc questions and answers. And if you can get your therapist team together, share best practices and things like this. So if you don't have a training budget, you can still learn. But when it comes to product lines, it's different, because obviously you do need to block out time, which if a therapist is focused financially and doesn't want to have the training blocked out because they'd rather be earning, and if the spa or business doesn't want to block the time out because it's good to have people in, you've got to think of the long term. Bigger picture is that you want to look after your team. Your team is your business, and they look after your guests. So you want to make sure that you're evolving them and you're developing them and you're providing that space to be able to do that. So whether that's ad hoc, whether that's a structured training plan, if it's budgeted or unbudgeted, there's always time. There's always time for training. It's more in the mindset of anybody who's resisting it, I think, is really where the focus needs to come.
I love your ideas, actually, how each spa leader can take up on training themselves without considering budgets. And it takes ultimately the initiative or creativity of each individual leader to make it happen. And that's true, that it's a great reminder that even investing 5 minutes in a daily briefing indeed can go a long way, but it probably comes down at that point to consistency. In regards to convincing your direct reports, your hotel managers, your GMs to add money to budgets, like to make budgets for training, do you have any tips what could be convincing arguments to them?
Training is good. Actually, it's not about sort of driving that message, because obviously if you're working in the hospitality and the hotel and resort and spa industry, you are already incredibly passionate about developing people. And I've worked for companies that I'm very fortunate that were very passionate about that. But if you have any resistance, whether it's from your team and blocking out time, yes, consistency and making sure everything is fair, but also it's about finding out really what are the values of the person who's resisting. So is it your boss? Is it your direct report? Is it your team? What is it that drives them? Like, what drives them to be working your business and to be doing an excellent job? If they're, for example, because if you can find out, for example, their top 3 values that drive them as to why they work, why they earn, why they are, then you can get to understand how that affects their behaviors and how that affects their opinions and their beliefs. And I know that sounds very sort of broad spectrum, but actually, if you just understand the top values, you've got a really great way of tailoring a training program that can support those drivers of the values of your team. So, what's important to your boss, what's important to your team, and actually, have you spoken to yourself and asked yourself, what are my top values in the context of my career? What are my top 3 values, and what are my values for this business and where I want to take it? Does that align with the general manager? Does that align with the hotel? Does that align with who you're recruiting to be on the team? So it can be part of the recruitment process as well. And it can be not diving into the deep depths of people's personal lives. It's just, what drives them in the context of their career? Why are they working there? And you can actually do a team environment activity where you can do values alignment, and where you can actually get them aligned, so that if somebody's driven by finances, or they're driven by a hobby, or they're driven by the want to progress in their career, then you can use that language of their values in terms of why you're booking in the training that you're doing and the type of training. It's all just to do with relationships and language and communication.
I love the thought, Helen. And actually, it's true that we often, our spa managers and spa leaders, I think of myself in times, you go to your N+1 or to your direct report and you say, we need to do training, and you have come with an expectation, but you don't necessarily come with a strategy of why this is making sense, or why this is important, or what the return on investment on training is. And I think that this is a great takeaway for everyone listening today, to go less into conversations about training with an expectation of just getting an answer yes or no, but rather coming in with strategic arguments and a vision and a plan in order to convince people where they know they are able to convince. Either
Absolutely.
If it's your manager,
absolutely.
Or your therapist.
Yeah, and also so that you're able to communicate that plan in the language of the person that you're presenting it to, what's important to them and what's driving them. And, you know, we're very good at the why in spa, why we need training, why we need more products, why we need more staff, why we need to build a swimming pool. You know, we're very good at the why, but it's also including the what if. Okay, so what if we don't? So what if we don't include a budget? What if we don't upgrade our menu? What if we don't upgrade our products? What happens if we don't? And what happens if we do? So the what if is something that's incredibly important, because it, for somebody who's forward thinking and strategic, like your general manager or your hotel manager or whoever you're reporting into, it's important to sort of go a bit more big umbrella and look into the distance and speak like that.
And I think when you, and I would think you would agree that training for team members can be a big motivation, and it comes always back in what keeps you staying loyal to a company. Training is more important than ever to have less turnover, which in this post-pandemic or in midst of pandemic times is just so crucial when you think how hard hiring is these days.
No, absolutely. And it's fantastic to involve everybody as well. So
I love that.
What is it that you, so not just their values and what that drives them, but what do they enjoy? What do they love to do? Where do they think they need to develop? What do they want to improve on? So it's not just all one-sided. It's getting the ideas of the team as well and incorporating that, because they have their finger on the button of trends with conversations with their guests or their clients. So it's important to have that sort of all-round 360-degree communication, not just two-way. I'm all about the 360.
Can tell. That's great. That's really a great thought to take with us home today. Now, we shared that this spa and wellness talk would be beneficial for spa managers and directors, but also for product houses. So hence my next question for you, Helen. Do you feel that brands are supporting their spas enough with training these days? As often, and I'm sure this may have happened to you too, I meet spa managers who are even unsure of what to expect from vendors in terms of support. Any insights on that?
Yeah, I think just touching on the whole communication and that 360, your product house and your business is a relationship, and think of it as an organism. It needs to function with each other. It can't just be one-sided, what can you give me? And it also can't be one-sided as in, you know, these are the sales you need to make. So it's a relationship, and I think it's important to consider the location, the type, the size, the business model of the spa, and also your market, and what are the trends and the needs of your market that are actually coming into your business. That's all and I know that everyone's experiencing, you know, all that analysis before you choose a product line, but I think it's it's what can we do together? What can we do? Absolutely no restraints. Go for 100%. What can we do to make this business work? And and you know, if a product line is supporting a spa, it's a win-win for them, because then if the spa does really, really well, they get the sales anyway. And it's a great thing for the spa, because it's not that spa directors are not creative or not able to communicate what they want. They're time poor. So a product line really needs to be able to just be ready and there when they're needed. And this is where business development managers and separate trainers help. Not just salespeople that sell you the product. They come in and train you the treatments and the products, but they also come in and do sales training. They do communication training, how to upsell, how to link sell, but also according to the personality of the person that you're talking to as well. What are the guests' needs? What are the guest values? What are their drivers? I'm a big person on the values. So it's being there with the marketing material, have a promotional plan, being able to tailor it according to your business model. It's, you know, be ready with you know, promotions, coming in and doing promotions, or providing gifts, or doing a promo day where somebody comes in, or you're coming to an event. You're doing an online internet
like
trend.
a virtual training.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing an online event with influencers, or you're doing something with the press, or maybe you've got space where you are where they can do a pop-up. You know, we're not usually, this is changing in design of spas, but usually you're not located right by the main door of the hotel. People are going to come and find you. So doing pop-ups that are relevant and just building that awareness of your message and your concept. So, and spas also being open to doing those sorts of things as well. And that's where the time poor comes in. That's where the relationships, in a saying in England, we have swings and roundabouts. It's, you know, sometimes this way and sometimes a little bit that way, but you're working together as a partnership. Absolutely. And I think, yeah, the product lines that are doing really well are the ones that aren't just selling a product and leaving them to get on with it until another new therapist joins and then they do training again. I think that's an opportunity to miss opportunity. And the thing is, I communicate with product lines, and I communicate also in therapist forums and spa forums. And very often therapists or spa managers, spa directors, they ask each other, I'm looking for a new product line, any recommendations? And you'll get a whole line of conversation of, oh, you know, this big product line, they're absolutely great, but then, you know, they have sales targets and minimum orders, and it does, you know, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do that, and it's very stressful. And so I think that if product lines can market that support more to people wanting to use their product line, I think that would encourage more business, and then deliver on that support. And then also salons, you know, salons and spas, you know, it's also taking on that product line and wanting to really work together to make it work, and not just buy them in and let the product line do all the work, because that's not a relationship either.
Absolutely. I think that's great feedback. Feedback to spa leaders, but at the same time to spa brands. That there is the expectation of the support and the need of the support for a common win-win situation. And I think that sharing upfront expectations as a spa manager about training with your vendor is key. As I mentioned earlier, the spas have a lot of turnaround, and teams need regular training in order to be successful. And one training every few years for me doesn't make it. And even training once a year for the key product lines of your spa, I personally feel that very thin.
Yeah. I think that's where the relationship comes in. Your relationship warms everything up. It makes it more of an opportunity for both sides. And it's a real lost opportunity if you don't have, if you have an opinion that it's their work to make your spa successful, and it's a really missed opportunity if the product line thinks, well, they've bought our products now, they're a client of ours. Because, you know, on the B2B side, you then get leaky bucket syndrome, where you're doing lots of sales and everyone's buying your products, but then if you don't nurture them and support them, then, you know, they're going to slip through your fingers and go with somebody else who is giving you the support. So
and as you just say, of course, there are many spa brands out there who have integrated training into their company philosophies, and where their spa partners are receiving an incredible amount of support. And I'm just thinking of two that jump straight to my mind, which are Biologique Recherche and Circadia. I've never worked with them. I'm not affiliated with them, but through the different 4 seasons I oversaw in the years, I just felt how these brands really demonstrate a keen interest in training and in developing and in motivating the teams, and ultimately assisting the spas in providing high quality treatments for their guests, which is fantastic, and which pays back to the brands by the number of treatments that are done, by the sales that are done. And it's really, as we said, it's a win-win.
Yeah, and it's troubling times. So this is where the to and fro and the swings and roundabouts. I mean, I think it's important for product brands to support the bra, you know, in terms of do everything possible to make it successful. And the spa needs to also work with them to make sure that, you know, it's a supportive environment on both sides.
Absolutely. Now, in 44 days, 2022 starts. Can you believe that?
No. Although I've been, you know, socializing with tinsel in the shops and Christmas and singing reindeers.
What comes to your mind, Helen, when you think of what types of training have not been explored yet enough in our industry, and how could we approach planning training in regards to including maybe different and new types for next year?
There are so many ancient, traditional, and new philosophies and research and technology. It's such a vast subject. You couldn't possibly recommend a specific blueprint for 2022. But I think I've always been someone, just, you know, if you don't try, you don't know. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it's not right. It just means it needs to be done in a different way. So I would just go out, have an activity with yourself. What are my values? Your top 3 values. Do an activity with the team and find out what's driving the person you report to and what's driving your team, and incorporate that into a training plan. And, you know, there's so much talk on mindfulness and mental health. And I think before you have an opportunity to help others and support others, you also need to have a very good understanding of how you work. How you work and how you process things as well. You know, we're all human beings, and I think it's important to self-develop. So, you know, look how you can expand your knowledge on yourself and looking after yourself beyond the meditation and the yoga class. This is more, you know, what's that saying? You're only as strong as your weakest link. But that weakest link is not necessarily something or someone. It can be a completely unconscious program running from an experience or from a memory or for something going on inside yourself. And I have had quite amazing revelations by going through a process of understanding how I process things in terms of how I behave and how I communicate. And through doing that, you can then understand how other people communicate. I think that's something that's really missing from SPA. We don't learn about ourselves. We learn about the industry, we learn about the service, we learn about the team, we learn about the guests. And inevitably there's, you know, people are passionate and they work really, really hard. And some amazing leaders have had burnout. And I think it's important that you take a moment to take all the advice of the industry and all the leaders sharing all the top tips on how to be mindful and how to, you know, look after your mental health. These all don't really work. But then what's the weakest link? How you see and find issues and problems in other people is actually a mirror for you to look at yourself. It's a lesson inside that hasn't yet been learned. And I don't mean to get so deep because I could talk for hours on this, but but I think that that's what's missing. You need to include yourself in the training plan. You need to include yourself in the personal development and the training. It's not just black and white reports of this is what we're going to do and blocking it out and working with your product lines. It's just, you know, let's look after ourselves, look after our team, who look after our guests, and our product lines are part of that.
This is a remarkable thought, and I will definitely take that with me, because it's true that you often put yourself last as a SPA manager or as a business leader, and we need to be included somehow in order to give back as well and to consider especially the mental health aspect as well of our teams. And what you just said about mindfulness training, in one of my previous hotels, actually, we had a wonderful painter from our engineering department who was also a mindfulness coach. And he was doing some sessions for our SPA team and at the end for the entire hotel. And he was outstanding. Not just his colleagues experienced him differently through this, but the team was able to take something home for them. And ultimately, there was no budget involved. Coming back to that first point that we discussed, what do I do if I don't have budget? And obviously, this was great, but it really shows that sometimes we need to look around for the opportunities that are out there, and that we just have not explored yet. So I love that that story because it really was unexpected when we experienced it. Yeah. I was just looking earlier to see if there are any questions in the chat, which at this point I don't see, but it's there were many activity, and it's really overwhelming to see how many people were interested in joining us today and to listen to this topic of training, which is so crucial. So thank you all so much for your questions and participations. Time flies. The 30 minutes coming close up already to our 30 minutes, and obviously when time flies, when we are passionate, time flies. And as I could speak for hours, but let's maybe conclude with 3 takeaways from today's session. And for SPA leaders and for SPA managers, I might say, make training a priority by shaping yourself already a vision for what you want to achieve in the year ahead, by being creative on how to implement training, even if there are struggles on your way, even if there's no budgets, and be creative on how to present and sell it to your managers and to your hotel and to the hotel managers and GMs. For the SPA brands that are listening today, the same, make training a priority as part of your company's culture, but also for your accounts by offering regularly training through skilled trainers. That's, for me, very crucial. And for us all, I want us to take something home which won't come as a surprise. Never compromise on training. I've lived by this the last 18 years, and I have never been wrong with that. Is there anything that you would like to add to this, Helen?
No, just do whatever it takes. And you are doing an amazing job in terms of what we've been through. So just, you know, keep it together, keep going. You're amazing. The content and the support in our industry is absolutely fantastic. And it's been wonderful to be part of it and to watch it over the last sort of couple of years as well, sort of going through the experience. But just, you know, you're givers and you need to manage that. Manage the amount that you give, manage the amount that you recharge and you put back in, put back into your battery packs. Takers will keep taking. They have no limits. You need to set yours.
That's a beautiful way to conclude our talk today, Helen. Again, thank you so much for having joined me today.
You're welcome.
I value highly your insights.
Wisdom in there somewhere.
And I value highly your expertise and your insights. And I took many, many notes and thoughts from what you said.
Likewise.
I think all of you who took the time watching and listening to us to the first edition of Spa and Wellness Talk, and I hope sincerely that you enjoyed it. We will be back, promised. Our next talk is on December 16th, again at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please follow VLF Spa Consulting on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I promise you won't miss a reminder for the next session, and the recording of today's talk will be available on this YouTube channel of VLF Spa Consulting as well, and the link to it will be shared via the social media channels over the next few days. I wish you all a wonderful remainder of your day, of your evening. Thank you all again for having been here with us. Thank you, Helen, and until next time, goodbye.
Yes. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.